start this.
Okay,
Recording in progress.
thank you. I just love to capture that, too. Come on, connect. Okay, at 7:01, I will open tonight's meeting of the Lunenburg Select Board of May 3rd, 2022, and ask everyone to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Wow, this is a fuller house than we've had in a long time.
Good evening.
Must be doing something right. Okay, formalities. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast live over the Lunenburg Public Access channel, on Facebook Live on the Public Access Facebook page, and will be uploaded to the Lunenburg Access YouTube page within 24 hours after the conclusion of the meeting. If you would like to participate in tonight's meeting remotely, and you have a smartphone, a computer, or a tablet, you can join using the Zoom application. Tonight's webinar ID is 909-174-0347. If you would like to participate but do not have access to any of those smart devices, but you have access to the phone, you can do so by dialing 888-475-4499. And once again, the webinar ID is 909-174-0347. The posted agenda lists all topics which may be discussed at the meeting and all those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by the open meeting law. Do we have any opening public comment from the board this evening?
I have none.
None. No.
And none from me. Public comment from the public? Also none.
Mr. Allison,
What?
online.
Oh, Mr. Allison. There we go. Sorry. Mr. Allison.
Good evening, Matthew Allison, 188 Flat Hill. I just wanted to confirm that with your joint meeting with the Sewer Commission that you'll be taking public comment?
Yes.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Announcement. So the most important announcement is this Saturday is the annual town meeting, starting at 9 a.m. Check-in opens probably around 8 a.m., and it is at the Lunenburg Middle School, High School Auditorium. Are there any, there's no special protocols, right?
No.
No special COVID protocols this year, so if you would like to wear a mask, you can. It is not required, and there will not be separate sections for people who want to wear them. So we hope everybody who's a registered voter in town does attend to address the meeting and issues facing the town. Okay, do you have any other announcements?
I do not.
Okay. Appointments, 7:05. Somehow I managed to fit that in perfectly. Third quarter financial report from our very own finance director. Good evening.
Our amazing, wonderful finance director.
That's what we like to hear.
All true.
Good to see you, Karen.
You as well. Good evening, everyone. I am here to present to you the third quarter revenue and expenditure reports for the quarter ending March 31st, 2022. I will start with revenues and let you know that total collections as of 3/31/2021 were $36,549,686, or 81% of our FY22 estimates. In summary, local receipts, the local receipt estimate for FY22 is $3,114,991. As of 3/31/2022, we have collected $3,369,785, which is 108% of the estimate through March 31st, 2022. The breakdown of that is as follows. Fines and forfeits, we budgeted $13,263. To date, we've collected $8,876, which is 67% of our estimate. Other excise, the budget was $100,980. To date, we've collected $101,213, or 100.23% of the estimate. Other excise is our local option meals tax, just so everyone knows. Departmental revenue school, which is preschool tuition and the Medicaid reimbursement that we get from the state for students who are Medicaid eligible. The estimate for that was $60,207, and we've actually received $132,324, which is an increase of $72,117. Payment in lieu of taxes, the estimate was $1,648. We've received $6,352, an increase of $4,704 over what was estimated. Licenses and fees, excuse me. We budgeted $176,052. And as of March 31st, we've collected $154,163, or 87% of the estimate. Licenses and permits, our budget was $331,188. To date, we've received $378,399. The majority of the reason why what we've actually received is higher than was estimated is for the permit that was issued for Leominster Shirley Road, for the warehouse on Leominster Shirley Road. That permit fee alone was $178,000, so, and we have received that money. Departmental revenue other, which is basically our ambulance receivable. The budget was $257,370, and as of March 31st, we've collected $223,992, which is 87% of the estimate. Our investment income was budgeted at $25,000. We've collected $12,372, which is 49% of the estimate. Departmental revenue for the cemeteries, budget of $4,100, received $4,000, or 97% of the estimate. Our motor vehicle excise, which is the biggest portion of our local receipt estimate, the budget is $1,721,640. We've received $1,535,689, or 89% of the estimate. Special assessments, the budget is $11,844. We've received $11,976. Penalties and interest, the budget was $200,000. We've actually received $470,471. The reason for that large increase over what was estimated is due to the tax lien sale that our treasurer had. There were a lot of people that paid all of their back taxes up front, or entered into a payment agreement, or did something like that in order for us to realize those revenues. Miscellaneous non-recurring revenue, $211,698 was budgeted. We've received $329,958. And again, the reason for that, why you're seeing such a significant increase there, is also related to the tax lien sale that Mylene had, because a large portion of this miscellaneous non-recurring revenue is related to the water betterment for the Meadowwoods Park. And they are current with their taxes now, so. So the bottom line is the budget was $3,114,991. We've received $3,369,785, which is $254,794 more than what we estimated for local receipts, and that's through the third quarter of fiscal year '22. For the tax levy, we've collected 78% of what was budgeted. The budget was $29,833,387. At the close of March, we collected $22,677,390. And again, that's 78% of what was estimated. And we also received $560,411 in tax lien revenue. On the state aid side, excuse me, the total state aid estimate per the cherry sheet was $9,242,812. To date, we've received $7,034,737, which is 76% of our state aid estimate. On the expenditure side, the total budgeted expenditures were $45,098,552. To date, we have expended and/or encumbered 74% of that budget as of March 31st, 2022. A couple of things that I'd like to note on the expenditure side is, as of March 31st, the reserve fund is still whole. The amount that was budgeted was $75,000. Snow removal, the deficit in snow removal as of March 31st was $127,931, and it is planned that this deficit will be eliminated through appropriation transfers at the upcoming town meeting on Saturday. Health insurance, life insurance, and Medicare expense. We anticipate a surplus in our health insurance line due to unfilled positions as well as decreases during the year in our retiree enrollment. A portion of the surplus will be used to cover an anticipated overage in our Medicare expense line, as well as covering a portion of our snow removal deficit at the upcoming annual town meeting. Our workers' comp and liability, there will also be small surpluses in those appropriations, and those will also be used to offset the snow removal deficit at the upcoming town meeting. And the same with our unemployment compensation. The original appropriation was $10,000. We have no one who has an active claim at this point in time, and we anticipate that those funds will be moved to also be used to cover the snow removal deficit. All the other appropriations are at or near where they should be at this point in the fiscal year, and I did provide you with a summary of the breakdown of all of the individual appropriations, and based on actual expenditures, the balance is remaining and the percent of the budget remaining. And if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
Is there anything in particular that that you haven't already drawn our attention to that we should know about?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think that everybody's budget is at or near where it should be. The surpluses that we had, we've identified, Heather and I have reviewed, and there is a recommendation for transfers of those appropriations at the upcoming town meeting. So, not to say that every budget will be fully expended at the end of the year. I know we certainly will have closeouts of appropriations which will flow towards free cash at the end of the year, but there isn't any particular appropriations that I can think of that should be brought to your attention as either problematic or surplus.
Open up to the board, if anybody on the board has any questions for the finance director.
I do not.
Thank you for, no question, but thank you for adding in I know I requested last time a line item, and I know I still need to comb through and read through all the details, but I do appreciate you including that.
No, and that's a good idea, so
What line item did you ask?
Oh, just the more detailed, all this
he just
stuff.
wanted a summary of all the appropriations without having to drill down into the actual detailed expenditure report. So it's a helpful tool for everyone, I think, because you can just glance at it quickly instead of digging into all the details. So
thank you so much.
you're welcome.
Thank you for coming forward. This is all excellent news, and keep up the good work.
Free cash, free cash, free cash.
Oh, is that like the finance director's, like your motto, like the real estate
Just
motto?
remember,
Nice.
it ain't cash and it ain't free. I tell you that all the time.
You know, I was hoping to get a year without hearing that.
But
Clearly
it's
that was
nice
wrong.
to have, for sure, because we've been very fortunate in not having to borrow for capital items in a number of
Right.
years. And so having that and being conservative with our revenue estimates, which you've probably heard from me for the last, how many years? 38? 38 years?
Since I've been involved with the
Yeah,
town.
yeah, so there's a reason for it.
That's
and
good.
that's the
No,
reason.
it showed great dividends, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Okay, 7:15, a public hearing for a Class 2 auto dealer license at 40 Summer Street for Jose de Oliveira and Sidney Fernandez de Souza, doing business as Maxi Auto, Inc. If you would come forward, please. Do we have the public hearing?
It's in the Google Drive.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Jose.
I have to, yeah, before you start.
All right. Okay.
I have to
Sorry.
make this official and read the public hearing notice. Okay. This was published in the Lunenburg Ledger. The licensing authority will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, May 3rd, 2022 at 7:15 p.m. at Town Hall, 17 Main Street, second floor, Lunenburg, Mass. On the application submitted by Jose de Oliveira, 69 Plain Street, Lowell, and Sidney Fernandez de Souza at 60 Candlewood Drive, Leominster, doing business as Maxi Auto, Inc. for a Class 2 auto dealer license. The license is to be exercised at the premises located at 40 Summer Street. The applicants seek to store and display 50 used motor vehicles for sale. Proposed hours of operation are from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. No, I'm going to start that again. Proposed hours of operation are from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and Sunday, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., or by appointment only. So I'm a little bit confused by the 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., but I'm assuming open to the public, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And signed by myself as chair of the Select Board and the Licensing Authority. So now, please introduce yourself and what you're planning to do at 40 Summer Street.
My name is Jose de Oliveira Jr. I live in 69 Plain Street, Lowell, Mass. Okay. No, that's it. Any question?
So do you have other auto sales locations? Or is this the
Yes.
first? You do?
Yes, I have the Lunenburg Auto Center 36, and right now I bought the 40 Summer Street.
Okay. I see we have the plan. Plan is on file. All the,
Everything's in
everything
order.
passed through, the license fee is paid. I'll
Yes.
send this down to the board if they want to see it.
We need to look through.
I'll open it up to the board if anybody has any questions for the applicant.
In the application, it indicated you're going to do some paving on the property.
Yes,
When is that going to occur? Is that going to occur before you open?
yeah. We start, but I'm waiting for the license for finish everything.
Okay.
When are you looking to open?
Monday, next Monday.
Okay, so,
Tomorrow, since possible.
I have nothing.
Well, certainly thank you for continuing to grow your business here in Lunenburg. I looked through the plan that went before the Zoning Board of Appeals. I'm I'm certainly not a member of the ZBA. I probably would not have voted for your 50 cars request. I think that that's very dense. But they're fine. I did not disagree with any of their findings that they came up with. And so certainly I will support the application. I would just encourage that, you know, that the plan that's in here, it's obviously too tight. And I would just encourage that, you know, you're mindful of that.
All right.
And that's it. Thank you.
What was it before you owned it? Was it another auto place? I don't recall this address.
Yes.
Was it
The
Daewoo?
It's another dealer. Another dealer.
It was another dealer,
Yeah.
okay. Okay.
I just
If there's no other questions, I would entertain a motion regarding the auto dealership, Class 2 auto dealership license at 40 Summer Street for Mr. Oliveira Jr. and Mr. De Souza doing business as Maxi Auto, Inc.
I move to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None. Good luck. And when will they,
Should be tomorrow, contact the office.
you can pick up the license tomorrow. Call the office first. just
all
make
right.
sure it's ready.
Thank you so much.
Thank
You
you.
can send that
Thank
down,
you.
and we'll just sign it now. And I will close the public hearing. Okay. Sure. Okay, we'll take out of order the ratification of the town manager's appointment of the reserve officer. Paul Teodolu? What? Dolo, okay, Teodolo.
Thank you.
Chief.
Thank you for taking us out of order and having
You're
us.
waiting so
tonight.
patiently.
As you're aware, our reserve program, as it was known in the past, has drastically changed. This is a result of police reform, the creation of post. The training requirements for a reserve officer has to meet the level of a full-time officer. If not, they have to meet that standard through the Bridge Academy. As a result of these requirements, our reserve ranks have been significantly reduced. With that being said, we are constantly attempting to recruit qualified candidates for our reserve officer program. I am pleased to announce that we found a reserve officer candidate who meets the criteria set forth by Post C and would be a good fit for our department and our community. I'm pleased to recommend Paul Teodolu. That's correct, right, Teodolu? Yes. For the appointment of a reserve officer. I don't want to keep butchering his name. Paul grew up in the city of Fitchburg, graduating from Fitchburg High in 2007. He was a lifelong resident of Fitchburg until he moved to Townsend. Shortly after graduation, Paul enlisted in the Army National Guard, serving honorably until being discharged in 2018. He's received the rank of sergeant through his tenure and also received several commendations and medals during his service. During his service, his unit was activated and he served in Afghanistan during Operation Enduring Freedom. In 2015, Paul was hired by the Fitchburg Police Department as a full-time police officer. He attended the MPTC basic recruiter class at Reading, graduating in 2015 with the 23rd ROC. Paul worked in Fitchburg from 2015 till 2020 when he resigned to take a position with Townsend PD. He decided to leave Fitchburg as a result of living in Townsend, and the small-town policing environment was appealing to him. Paul worked for Townsend until November of 2021 when he resigned to take a job in the private sector. The job provided substantially more money and schedule was better suited for his family. Lieutenant Thibodeau and myself were aware of his status. We knew of him. We actually sought him out to see if he'd be still interested in working as a reserve officer. We set up an appointment with him, brought him on board, and he was excited about the opportunity to come on board with us. As for a full-time position. Obviously, we didn't have one at the time when we spoke with him, but also it wasn't a fit for him just yet. So we're hoping to get him to that fit eventually. When Lieutenant and myself concluded the interview with him, we both concluded that his experience and training, Paul would be an asset to our department and a good asset to our community. During his background investigation, there were several positive comments from both Fitchburg PD and Townsend PD. Paul was described as a team player, hard worker, go-to guy, a great kid. It was also stated that Paul used sound judgment, had a cool head, and always willing to help, and had a good sense of humor. By all accounts, Paul was described not only as a good person, but he has the characteristics that fit the concept of community policing. Again, as previously been stated, being up here multiple times, those are the characteristics that we look for in our officers that we want to hire. I know some of Paul's former coaches from Fitchburg High. They speak fairly highly of him. Knowing some teachers in the school also, nothing but good things to say about him. As can be seen in the letter that I presented, Paul's an outstanding person, and he would be a good fit and an asset to our community and our department. Paul brings with him a wealth of experience and training, and will continue to grow with our department. I present to you Paul Theodore.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'm Paul Theodulu. As the Chief already mentioned, I'm from Fitchburg. First, I want to say that in my time in Fitchburg and Lunenburg, Townsend, I have heard nothing but good things about town of Lunenburg, the police department, which, you know, when Lieutenant Thibodeau reached out to me, I couldn't turn the opportunity down. I couldn't. When I left policing, I missed it. I still do, and I think the part-time opportunity is great to keep me in it. And you know, my plans right now is to go in the union as a equipment operator. I'm not good at public speaking. Sorry, that's one of my downfalls. So again, I'm not going to say the full-time's out of the question in the future. However, at this time, I'm kind of playing by ear. You know, my family comes first. That's just why I left Fitchburg and, you know, Townsend. I had to take a step back from the career for a little while. But again, this opportunity came up, and I couldn't say no, especially with the reputation that this town has and the police department has. And I got to say thank you to everyone involved for bringing me in here, and I look forward to, you know, moving forward.
Excellent. Well, everything you heard was true, so that's
Yeah,
number one. Number two is, I'm glad to hear the backstory, which is good, and I certainly can appreciate your position in that. I also know that there's like 6 people surrounding you. As soon as you say yes to this, that they'll go to work on the full-time part later on. We've seen this in the past. So, but anyway, you come highly recommended from the chief and the people who've interviewed you, including the lieutenant, and that's all, from my own standpoint, that's all I need to hear. They have an excellent his track record of hiring excellent people, and I trust that you will be the same in that category. So thank you.
Thank you.
Open it up to the board.
I'd just like to say welcome to Lunenburg. Glad you're taking this opportunity, and we actually appreciate your enthusiasm and your public speaking, and I think you did a great job.
Thank you, sir.
I just want to thank you for serving, that's all.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, we highly value our police department here in Lunenburg, as I'm sure you're aware.
Yes, absolutely.
And we do invest in our police, and you know, it really is, I think, one of the prides of our community is the quality of the officers that serve on our police force. So you certainly are going to be in great company. You know, we're always so impressed by our officers, and you know, it's really good to hear your perspective about family comes first, because it's very true. And I hope that in our role as members of the select board, that we ensure that throughout our town, with the work of the town manager, that all of our employees feel and understand that your family is always first. This family is what motivates you to want to come out here and do these great things. But also there's a certain sense of selflessness that you must have in order to do this kind of job. So thank you for stepping up. Thank you for going through the training. You know, it seems like you're doing the right thing for your family, and that is extremely important.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd also be remiss if I didn't once again thank the fellow police officers who come to attend these things. It really shows a great show of unity in the department, and whoever's responsible for that, whether it's just part of the culture or somebody's organizing it, it really makes a great showing. So, you know, excellent. All right, so I'll entertain a motion regarding the ratification of the town manager's appointment of the reserve officer, Paul Theodoulou.
I move to ratify the appointment of Paul Theodoulou to the, as a reserve officer in the Lunenburg Police Department.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you
Welcome
very much. I
aboard.
appreciate that.
Thank you.
Do you have other business before us here? Okay, yeah, let's do the traffic unit.
Thank you. I appreciate you
Yeah,
taking
no,
me
that's
out of
fine.
order. In our continuing effort to staff the civilian traffic unit to help fill road jobs, we found an applicant for another position. The candidate is John Hazelrigg. He's a retired Mass State Trooper. Trooper Hazelrigg lives in town here. He served with the MSP for 35 years. His last duty station or duty service was aircraft commander, which is kind of cool. We used to see the air wing fly over Lake Whalum. Trooper Hazelrigg is retired in good standing with the MSP. He's certified member. He is certified to be a member of the civilian traffic unit and has provided the required paperwork needed to obtain that position. This information was submitted to the town manager and the assistant town manager. I respectfully request that John Hazelrigg be appointed to the civilian traffic unit effective May 4th, 2022.
Is Mr. Hazelrigg here, by the way? No, okay, I didn't know. Okay. Yep, no.
I have a comment.
Yes.
So, John, Trooper Hazelrigg, first of all, is a hero, which I'm sure you know.
Yes.
He is he has his reputation precedes him in terms of his, the work he's done saving lives across the Commonwealth. I was really shocked. I don't know many names of troopers across the state, but his is one I do know.
Yeah.
So I was really surprised to hear that not only, I knew he was a Lunenburg resident, but I was not aware that he was looking to kind of give back to his community. So this really is a stellar hire for Trooper Hazelrigg.
Absolutely, I agree 100%. I've known him for years and just an outstanding person also.
Yeah.
His whole family is like that.
Excellent.
I love the backstories. Thank you for bringing that up. And I like that it was very easy to pronounce his name. So, that was also good.
Yeah, thank
A little
God.
easier than last time.
So we need like to get, especially from my standpoint, it'd be nice to get phonetically when somebody has a difficult name. I don't want to butcher anybody's name.
Me neither.
So, anybody have any other questions about the appointment of Trooper Hazelrigg to this position?
No.
And I would entertain a motion regarding the ratification of the town manager's appointment of civilian traffic unit position, John Hazelrigg.
I move to ratify John Hazelrigg to be appointed as I move to ratify John Hazelrigg as a civilian traffic unit officer in the Lunenburg Police Department.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, Tom?
To the Sewer Commission, I appreciate you indulging us by attending to people who are here. So, so at 7:20, we have a meeting with the Sewer Commission representative regarding Article 25, the sewer bylaw amendment. Mr. McDonald, welcome.
It's funny when you say butcher names. If I ever call you buddy, that means I'm not even going to try. So, hey, buddy.
Okay, so we had questions. This is one of the articles that we had not taken a position on because we wanted to hear more information. And then I know on social media that there were some questions that some residents had regarding this bylaw. The Sewer Commission was kind enough to actually hold a special meeting tonight, right before this meeting that I attended, and I shared with Mr. McDonald and the rest of the commission what my concerns are on the bylaw. Has everybody read it? Okay. So, well, I'll let you start. Maybe you want to start and explain what the intent is, and then I'll, just for summary, I'll bring up what mine was and see if any of the other members have anything.
Okay. One is, my name's Dave McDonald, Chairman of the Sewer Commission. I live on Allen Road in Lunenburg. With me tonight's our super fantastic business manager, Barbara. And I was wondering, is there any way you can put this one up on the screen? And we passed this out to you guys tonight. This is kind of like the summary of the whole article. And I don't know what selectman's going to be able to read that at the town meeting, but good luck.
Well, we're going to say as posted or as
Okay,
printed.
yeah, I would.
There's no way we're reading 2 pages of, yeah, substitute this, and, yeah, we're not doing that.
What we've been doing on the sewer commission is, we have a great commission, a young, enthusiastic commission, and we're going through a lot of our bylaws and upgrading them. It's been 20 years since sewer's been in town, so a lot of these things have to be aligned with what's going on today. So that's why we're doing this. Barb, if you want to give a little history about this article.
Sure.
And is it up? No?
We're working on it.
Working on it, it's not popping up.
It's also available on the sewer website. We have it. It's a, if you, I'll speak. It's just a summary of what was going on there. We did receive word that there was a lot of action on social media, so we wanted to get to what the issues were and what we were trying to accomplish. The bylaw, sewer bylaw, just has been in place since about 2009, I think, 2010. It was brought to our attention several times, and most recently by the departing DPW director, that it is very odd for a town to not have, to not allow any easements, period. And also to not have somewhere in their regs a waiver or leaving something up to a discretion of the sewer commission when a situation comes up that is not addressed in the regs and the sewer commission has no leeway. There's nothing in there about having waivers or the discretion of the commission. So this, what we were trying to do with council's help was to get these 2 items into the bylaw. So if you want, I can read it if you want. What was on?
I think you guys have a copy of it because it'll be read at town meeting.
All
It's in
right.
your
And
Google
we have a
Drive.
copy of it.
Yeah, and it's on the sewer website, so anybody else that
Sharing.
wants to see it. But it's basically just allowing easements for emergency or undue hardship and/or in the best interest of the town. It's adding the waiver possibility, and it's also clarifying that just by approving or by allowing the expansion of the sewer service area, that is not an approval for any project. It is just an expansion of the sewer area, which also cannot be done without town meeting vote. So those things were the items that were being clarified.
When we talked about this as a commission, it sounded so easy what we were trying to do. But to do it right, we gave it to our lawyer, who we got a lot of respect for. So this is lawyer language in here. So it has to be corrected on some issues. At tonight's meeting, we got some really good feedback from the population, but I want to explain to you why we're doing it. There are some houses in this town that have been built before sewer was put in, before actually lands of lot lines were done. And we had one of our customers come to us who was paying a betterment for their property. The house sits off of Mass Ave, and they have a shared driveway, but they have no access to utilities. So this is the reasoning behind that. That customer should be able to access sewer. It's the only right thing to do, and it's a fair thing to do. So what we're trying to do is service our customers. And I know tonight there was a lot of questions about new development and this and that, and it's mainly meant to handle that kind of situation. It's not made to open up a 4,000 unit, of course, who knows what's going on, but it's not made for that. It's made for, I would say, maybe 10 customers that are on our system that should be treated fairly, who paid their betterments, who's entitled to sewer. So our business at the Sewer Commission is we're a utility company, and I keep saying that. Our job is not to promote or deny growth. That's up to the other boards. If they come before us and it's been approved, most likely they're going to get sewer. But if we are in a sewer district, if you're in the CMP, you're entitled to sewer, you should be able to get it as long as there's enough flows and so on. So mainly that was the gist of this. Now, Barbara and our girl Jane wrote all the comments from tonight from you, Mr. Alonso, and other customers. So we're already going to be submitting those tomorrow to Adam. We'll try to do an addendum on the floor if there are more comments. But I think that's the way it is. So I'm welcome to answer any questions you guys have.
Sure. So just to sum up what I spoke with at your meeting, which is recorded, and so people can listen to it once it's on the YouTube channel. But, and I appreciate the synopsis. Synopsis goes a long way to telling us as a board and us as a town what the intention was.
Yep.
And of course, anybody who, does a lot of these legal documents, whether you're a lawyer, I'm not a lawyer, but we have one. If there's a mechanism that you're using in the sewer, he could help patent it. But the language that's used to implement what the intent is where the rubber hits the road. Because sometimes, if not written, extremely explicit enough, things could be opened that were unintentional, and we want to make sure. So again, I appreciate, the intent is the important part to start. So what I mentioned were basically two things in two places. The first one is in the first paragraph titled Section 2.20, where they talk about amending a second paragraph to that section called the sewer service area. And the last sentence there says, neither the boundaries of the sewer service area nor the requirements that a property be located within said sewer area to be eligible to connect may be waived. I said that potentially the word property there is more inclusive. In the beginning of that same paragraph, they talk about property or portion of a property. And I at least suggested that maybe they keep that same language in that location to make sure that people aren't thinking that if a portion of your property is in, that the whole property is in, and it gets ambiguous. We want that to be clear. But the most important, the longer discussion was on the new edition of a Section 10 called waivers. And in this article, it was noted by myself and other people on the Sewer Commission's meeting earlier, that this really gives broad powers to the Sewer Commission, and solely to the Sewer Commission. And while I was okay, as Chairman McDonald said, regarding emergency circumstances, I'm for that, and I'm for people having undue hardships that can be remedied. But three things that were the most important to me. First of all, I think if there's going to be a waiver, it should not be by majority. I would suggest that it should be by supermajority, in the same way that ZBA special permits are done, so that if it's really an emergency, it should be easy to convince 4 of the 5 people who are members of the Sewer Commission that it's an emergency. Number 2 is I think it should require a public hearing. So I would suggest that the language from the regulatory authority section that talks about public hearings be adopted into that language below. And then lastly was that there's an ambiguity here when they said that, and let me just read the first full sentence. It says, except as otherwise stated herein, the Sewer Commission reserves the right to waive in its sole discretion any provision or provisions of this bylaw and/or the rules and regulations adopted hereunder due to emergency circumstances. Now, first I would draw your attention to the semicolon there, and I don't know if that's accidental or it's meant to be emergency circumstances, and that's one section. Then, as may cause undue hardship is 2 sections, or that should run together. So that would be a thing that's unclear here. But as may cause undue hardship to any person or entity affected thereby, or as the commission may deem to be in the best interests of the town. So that last "or" is a big exception for me, because that means it doesn't have to be an emergency and it doesn't have to be a hardship if whatever the project is that's before them. And again, from what they said, it's not their intent, but the language allows for them to say, okay, well, we think this project, whatever the project is important, so we're going to waive some of the rules. And I do have an objection to that. Either that has to be, or either all of them have to be true, or I would strike that last part, that we can't, I would not be in support of the commission being able to give waivers for anything they deem to be in the best interest of the town of Lunenburg.
I think you got 3 categories that we're talking about, though, and let's just take them one at a time.
Sure.
And my intent on that would be there's 3 different things. What is an emergency, and what classifies an emergency? Well, I have a house that's on a septic, I can't replace it. That's an emergency. The only way to get to a sewer, if you're within the sewer district.
Yep.
Second would be, let's just say you bought a piece of property and you can't get access to sewer. You can't get access to a septic system. That might be new construction. That was brought up tonight by Mr. Allison. And one of our members said, well, what if you bought that property and the only way to get sewer would be through an easement? That's a situation we got to talk about. All our meetings are going to be public, by the way. This isn't going to be behind closed doors. They would be a public meeting.
I do want to interrupt you, and for a specific reason. This waiver clause is mentioned in the easement area, the inclusion of easements. But this waiver clause stands on its own. The waiver clause itself allows you to waive anything.
Well, that's where we got to talk about.
So it's not only about easements. So if you want to restrict it, that you can give waivers only to easements, that would restrict the power. I would be a lot more comfortable with it.
Yeah, this is strictly that.
Okay.
So, I mean, like I say, I know Barbara and Jane are writing the comments from tonight, from our meeting, and from this meeting, and Adam can answer a lot of these on the floor.
And I'd be more than happy, by the way, if you have language from town council that you want to forward after you talk with him, that would be, I'd be more than happy to review it, because
This was the first one,
But yeah, those are the points I had, and only those points. I would open up to the board if anybody has anything additional to say or in support of, or anything new in the article.
Just want to make a point of clarification on your concern, Mr. Alonso. So are you saying that in spirit, even if not written this way, that except as otherwise stated herein, the Sewer Commission reserves the right to waive in its sole discretion any provision of this bylaw relative to the grant, relative to easements? I mean, in other words, if it restricted, you'd be all right with that? Restricted the ability to exercise a waiver to easements.
That would go a long way, first of all, because that limits what the power is, that's for sure. I still think that it would have to, I think there's going to be a disagreement, and I think Mr. McDonald knows what our disagreement is, that if somebody has a piece of property that they own, it does not have a building on it, I think there would be a discussion or a disagreement in what he would like, and maybe the whole commission would like, and what I think, because I remember when the whole sewer, the sewers in town were adopted, it was very clear to the people who spoke then that they didn't want the sewer to be used as a way to open up development. So just because you had a piece of property and you couldn't put a septic, if it's a new thing, that's not, to me, that's not a hardship. Because you have a piece of property that, there's no entitlement. We talked about wetlands that got taken over in foreclosure, right? If you own that, there's no entitlement to that you can build on it regardless, right? So in this case, I'd say the same thing. If it doesn't support it, I don't know that I think that a waiver for an easement would be beneficial or something for the town. I mean, that would be my take.
I think we all have to look at this, and again, when it was designed for 9 people in the town of Lunenburg. But Mr. Alonso brings up some points, and yeah, we don't agree. 20 years ago, when the sewer maps were done, you had property, say, more than 2 acres. Half of it was taken out of the sewer district. Well, a lot of people have that property and weren't aware that you can't put sewer, if you want to put the house 400 feet back, you can't do it because it's not in the district, which doesn't make any sense to me at all. But I understand the intent 20 years ago. 20 years ago, this town had 7,000 people. Today, we're close to 13,000, give or take a few. So a lot of things have changed. And again, you want to keep the small town charm, but our easement policy that we're doing is trying to correct a wrong that was done from 20 years ago. As far as the future development, that's up to the town people to do. I mean, if a person buys a piece of property, and we have one, I think, going up on somewhere in Lunenburg on Chestnut Street or something, where their land, front of the house is sewered, the back of it is not. You can't build in the front, it's all wetlands. So they gotta move to the back. So that's a situation where the town has to make a decision. But I think as far as what we are, the sewer commission, again, to emphasize, we don't promote or deny expansion in the town of Lunenburg. Our job is to give them sewer, if it's requested and if it's done right. So that's why we're here. But I really want to thank you guys for your comment. I know I've got more comments, but we knew there was a situation going on. That's why I'm here tonight, and that's why we had a special meeting to make sure everybody knows what we're doing.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
And I'm afraid of one thing. This is my last year as chair on the sewer. I'm turning it over. And 5 years from now, I want the sewer commission, whoever it is, to follow the same guidelines that we did for our customers. And so this is really more of a precaution too. You know, we're all getting up there in age, so I want to make sure whatever we do here today lasts a while.
So my question is that, thank you, first of all, for the synopsis. I know that sometimes, you know, you guys are a very communicative board, in the sense that we get notices of your meetings, you know, we get a lot of information from you guys, and you know, and I no doubt there was a public hearing that was, you know, probably not well attended regarding this, and then the warrant comes out, and I'm sure the feeling is, well, you know, people up in arms. But sometimes that's just the process. And, you know, are you at a point where it would be wise to pull the article and re-engage the community and kind of public discussion on some of these concerns that have been brought up?
No, not at all. I mean, we bring the article the way it is. We explain why it is the way it is. If people deny it at town meeting, they deny it. If they approve it, they approve it. But one last thing, I want to make sure that our council gets up and says, this is what we're going to do. But, you know, one of the things we're trying to do in the sewer commission is service our customers. We don't like to have meetings about the same thing for 2 months.
Yep.
It costs our clients money. And I don't want to be accused of wasting people's money because I know what it's like. You know, if you want to build a house in town, it should be like this. It shouldn't be months of going into different departments. And that's what's happening in this town. Our commitment on the sewer is to get you in and get you out and do it the right way. That's why this came up, because there's situations that we want to make sure that we proceed. And even with our public hearings, we changed that too, didn't we? As far as the public hearing.
Yes, it had been written that it would require 2 televised hearings. And we're just trying to change it to 1, because the way it is written as televised hearings and the normal in-person time of meetings, that stretches it over 2 months. And we're just trying to make it a public hearing, and council was fully in favor of that it was being stretched over too long a period of time if we want to change the regulations.
So we only have 1 public meeting a month, you know, and that would delay a customer for 2 months to go through the same thing. And because of Zoom, we can do that. Now, I don't know what the policy with Zoom is going to be in the future, but I think this is really important that we keep doing meetings like this with the people over on our shoulder over here to have comments. But that's how you get communication out there. That's how you get people excited. So, I mean, I think it's important.
So, you know, I don't know what your case study was for this, but as you know, I came before the sewer commission as a resident because of, you know, this doesn't fully address, I think, everything that I had an issue with, but it took me 6 months, and I was very frustrated, as you know, throughout that process because I thought it was too long. I thought I had a very simple problem of being charged a betterment while having a bylaw that says I can't access sewer, that would be an easy solution, and it took 6 months to get that fixed and require litigation and me by foregoing $7,000 in pay and a whole, you know, back. And it was just, it really was unnecessary in my opinion, and it was because I was victimized by the bylaws in a sense, and it was no one's fault. It was the bylaws. And sometimes you get those unintended consequences when you do something. I really like this change. I think that had this have been in place, my process would have been a lot smoother, would have been a lot quicker, would have been more clear. But the waiver section I just do not support. I think it's too expansive. I think that the synopsis that you've included here, I agree with it, but I don't think that the synopsis fully captures what the bylaw changes actually say. I think the synopsis is the intent, but I think that what is in here is a little bit different. So I'm not in favor of the bylaw. I can't support it in its current form. And it sounds as if, without pulling it, that we're going to be in a lengthy discussion at town meeting trying to reword a lot of sections on the floor.
You know what, Mr. Ray, I value your opinion, but that's your opinion.
Yep, it is.
And I'm surprised hearing you say that because you're right. We spent 8 months actually with you trying to fix that problem where this policy and this waiver would have had you had sewer. So I'm very surprised you're doing that, but that's okay. I understand. So vote no.
Now, I mean, as Mr. Alonso raised, you know, my concerns really are that is I think that the intent is if someone's in a hardship, someone's in an emergency, I support that. It's that or that is where you're losing me. I think that that's too much. And then I also agree with the other comments that Mr. Alonso made tonight, that I think that your intent is clear, but I think the language in front of us is not quite the intent.
I think what we're going to do is we'll go through town meeting, we'll go through the exercise, since we're already on the article, and we'll bring our case to Adam Costa and take his recommendations.
Yep.
But this isn't brain surgery, but I also understand that people have doubt, and I probably would have doubt sitting on the other side without knowing what we're trying to do. So intent's a very big word, and you got to remember that. It's the intent.
Your intent is, I agree with your intent. I agree with the synopsis completely. It's just, as Mr. Alonso pointed out, there's just a couple of things in this language that seems a little bit different than the intent.
I'm hoping Adam answers those questions for us. So.
All right.
Yeah, if I could just add to that too, I definitely appreciate the points that both Mr. Ray and Mr. Alonso are raising, because while it may be your intent and you would enforce this and implement it in a particular way with the current composition of the current commission, because you all know what the intent is, those words are going to live on as you said you want them to, yeah, right? So how do people interpret it 10, 15, 20 years from now? The intent is going to be lost somewhere. It's going to be buried.
Exactly.
So.
No, that's why we want to rewrite it. Well,
Yeah.
make the corrections.
Yeah. So.
You have any questions?
I don't have any questions. I agree with comments that the language needs some work, particularly in the waiver section, and I think we've often tackled things like that at town meeting before, and I think we'll probably end up doing it again. Because I do believe that the intent is a good one for this revision, and I think we'll be able to, overcome that at town meeting.
I will make the commitment to you that I will try to work, again, with town council, and if not, I'll work on my own with language that I think would address my issues, and then share it with town council. It would be nice going into it with an amendment that right out of the gate, can allay people's fears. But my intent is to help you get this passed, because I think it is an important thing. I think those conditions that you brought up and those unique situations of property owners are certainly true, and they should be incorporated here. My only concern is one of, broad powers, two concerns. One of broad powers, and then opening things up that are not residential and not hardships. I don't want to, I don't want to talk about business hardships and things like that. I want to talk about residential hardships and residential emergencies.
That was brought up tonight too, and I totally agree. I agree with everything you guys are saying. It's just funny that we're at odds over a point or an or.
We're not at odds.
No. I mean, as far as the wordage, I understand that. And again, I'm not a lawyer either.
Right.
But the bottom line is, I was asked tonight, what if a development comes in or a mall or something? And that's, again, the intent is only for residents within the sewer district. So I want to thank you, and we'll go to the floor, and I appreciate
We're
it.
going to open it up to the public to see if anybody in the public.
Oh, no, I'm just thanking you
Question
before
to
the
follow up on
public.
that.
Oh, okay, yes.
Can we, I know we could do it with taxes, but can we make rules that say residents only and not include the business owners?
I don't see why we can't do that, yeah.
Well, sure.
But that's a question for council, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Now, again, most of the stuff that happens before it gets to us is through the planning board.
Yep.
So, I mean, you have to still go through the channels of doing something in this town. We're just trying to make sure that we're set up for what we have to do in our division.
Right.
And not have a 6-month or an 8-month delay.
Yeah.
That was awful,
No, I don't-
absolutely awful.
I don't think we want to delay, but I
No, I'm
will
just saying.
focus on what Mr. Franco said, because I think he said it very succinctly. I want to help your intent
Yep.
be memorialized in the bylaw. I just want that reflected, so there's no wiggle room, so that, again, in his example, 10 years from now, somebody's not reading it, they're not going to know what's in the
No,
intent.
and the same what I just said too,
Right.
because we change every year, so.
Yep.
But if you'd like to open it up to the public.
Is there anybody in the public who's on Zoom who would like to speak?
Is our screen frozen back here?
Is there anybody who has their
No.
hand raised?
No.
Okay,
Wait.
there we go. Mr. Allison.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Matthew Allison, 188 Flat Hill. I also was at the earlier sewer commission meeting. And I'd like to just reiterate agreement with most of the comments that have been made tonight at this meeting, that this is an important thing, and but however, it's important to 9 residents, is what I've heard. Is there a way for the zoning board or the select board to interject and make allowances to this bylaw?
I would think the sewer commission being a separate elected board, the answer to that would be no.
So the board has to deal with the zoning board's allowances that go against the zoning.
Well, I mean, well, so everybody has their own lane, and zoning has zoning lanes, and the sewer commission doesn't, cross over into zoning requirements. But the same token, the ZBA would not get into what the sewer bylaws and the sewer service area would be either. They're very separate.
The sewer service area, I'm speaking to the waiver, the 10.0, the waiver section.
Yep.
I share concern with a lot of people that spoke about this being a very large grant to the powers of the sewer commission. And again, I love Dave. He does great work in not only in the sewer commission, but in all aspects of town. But there are some serious potential unintended consequences here. A town commission, right? It's talking about itself as a utility company, and it's also talking about itself as a business. But I think the sewer commission itself is simply just a town group body. Is that correct?
Well, you said 3 separate things. Yes, they are just a division of the town, yes.
They're not a utility company and they're not a business. Is that correct?
So officially, no, they're not a utility company. I think Mr. Chair, I don't want to put words into Mr. McDonald's mouth, but I think his is just making an analogy. They provide services to businesses and residents.
I understand. And you yourself, Mr. Alonso, had specified a project, but this speaks to property.
I'm not recalling exactly what you're referencing. I mean, I mentioned that if a project was like a subdivision was to come before them, allowing access to large tracts behind a property, that may come up. So if a single property is divided into one part is in the service area and one part isn't, what would this waiver allow for going beyond? And so that was just a question, a hypothetical.
If that's the case, they would have to come to town meeting and request to expand that district.
So I guess one additional addition to the waivers is, and I spoke to this earlier at the sewer commission's meeting, is that it not involve undeveloped property or new construction. The waivers, I feel strongly that the waivers section should only apply to existing single-family homes.
That's something that you were on the call when one of our members brought up that incident that if you have a piece of property and you're building a house and it fails to get a septic system in, wouldn't that be emergency?
That would be emergency, yes.
Okay, but that's new construction, right?
Well, if it's new construction?
Yeah.
Well,
No, if it's new construction, there's no service there at all. There's no septic system.
Right, and the property can't sustain one, but they're in the sewer district.
Well, okay, so our zoning, our state regulations state that if there was a parcel pre-existing to zoning, that it is existing non-conforming or air quotes grandfathered, such that it is allowed to have one single-family home, regardless if it's a half an acre or if it's 1,000 acres. It is guaranteed one single-family home. So construction should not be anything to be construed as an emergency or a hardship, in my mind.
If this property has the frontage required by the town bylaws, they shouldn't even be asking for an emergency. They should be able to tie in if they're within the sewer district. We don't see that as a major problem, but it was a good point, and I gotta commend our commission for asking that question. It was a good question.
I want to ask a follow-up just to that, because Mr. Allison, I think, brings up some good questions. So how we define an emergency varies. You know, some people say life, limb, or eyesight. Some people say extreme risk of property damage.
Let's go to your house.
How is emergency defined?
Let's go to your house. You got a septic?
I do.
Say the septic failed. You can't put any more septic on that property. Would that be an emergency, or would you get a tight tank?
I think what I'm asking is does the bylaw that you're proposing define what an emergency is, or is that
Because
open to?
that's why we have.
Clearly it doesn't
yeah.
define it, just.
I'm trying to give you an example. It's within the sewer district. You have a piece of property, your system fails, you can't perk anywhere else. You have a driveway you share with a neighbor. You paid a betterment until we changed it. That took 8 months. But you have a betterment, you should be able to tie into the sewer. That, to me, would be an emergency, but
Yeah, I would concur with that.
yeah, maybe it isn't with you. Maybe you want to do a tight tank and pump every day. That would be up to you. But you should not be denied. That's where I get strongly for our customers.
Yep.
You should not be denied that utility, or in this case, sewer.
Would it be helpful to include? Would it be helpful to include a definition of an emergency, so that way a future board can understand what was
It could be
intended?
anything, Mr. Ray. Your case was, when you came in and we talked about it, it was also brought up, there's like 9 customers in town that have your situation.
Yep.
That's what this policy was for, is those 9 customers. It wasn't meant to open up a can of worms, but I'm glad it is, because you got people talking. Which leads me to believe if you're on a sewer line right now, if you want to tie in a sewer, please, come on, call Barbara, come on down and tie in.
I think my comment is that I think it would be, you know, I fully get what you're saying, and to use my own example, what part of the problem was that there was debate on whether or not my situation was reasonable, and I was presenting that, you know, if I wanted to, in my own case, if I wanted to access sewer, I have no frontage, I'm several football fields into the wood line, and I have to access the main road going over someone's property.
Yep.
The person who owns that property had zero interest in installing sewer, and I would incur costs in excess of $100,000 to tie in. And what was debatable was whether or not $100,000 was unreasonable. And I was floored that a member thought that $100,000 cost, or in fact, I think at that time, the number I had was like 150, that was a reasonable burden for me to assume. So it would be helpful then, like, I understand what you're saying about an emergency. I would consider a resident incurring a cost that is a third of their home value to be completely unreasonable. And so the point that I'm saying is, I think that there's a need for a definition, because what would be difficult is this future board in 10 years from now that's looking at these situations, that's looking at these exceptions, what's considered acceptable, that if you have, you know, 2 members, that if the language changes to supermajority, and then you have 2 members who say, well, you can incur $150,000 cost, as was told to me, then, I mean.
You know, I don't think it was brought up about money. I think that what happened when you came to us was a cluster. Shouldn't have happened.
Yep.
I mean, and if you remember right, most of the board approved everything you're going to do.
Correct.
It just kept coming back.
Correct.
That's not going to happen. It should not have happened. And we are a business, by the way. We run our commission like a business, because we're an enterprise fund.
Right,
I
an
mean,
enterprise fund, right.
I mean,
So it's very similar. It's not a separate business
No.
per se, but it certainly operates as one as an enterprise
I
fund.
mean, we have employees, we have budgets, we have quotas, and we have responsibility that go
Right.
together with our results. So to list an emergency, I understand what you're saying. Maybe we can talk about it, but I just don't
Well,
know.
I would say, again, without, just to interject here, I think that there's no, at some point you have to allow the word to be interpreted by reasonable people, because there's not, whatever you can list, somebody will come with something that's not on the list, and what do? Do you deny them because it's not on my enumerated list? And there's no way you could capture every single thing, and if you did, it would be like pages long. It's like, you have to judge that the judgment of the people can determine what reasonable emergency means.
And keep in mind, every time we initiate the waiver process, we're going to have a public meeting too. So it's not just, hey,
Well, and to that point, that was brought, that was brought up at our meeting prior to this, and it was a very good point. And so that is on our list to send to council, that a waiver request should also have a public hearing. It's not written into that section 10.0, but I think most members present agreed that that would be a good idea. So it would be addressed to the public and
I
other
think
boards.
what we'll do tomorrow, we'll give you guys the new list, make sure you get it to Heather, she can distribute it to the board or give it to you, and put your comments in it, but try to do it before Saturday, because this is what we're gonna be doing on
I'm
Saturday.
gonna try to do it tomorrow. Mr. Allison, do you have another question?
I do. Thank you. So I guess this is a town bylaw that we're trying to change for 12,000 plus people. Mr. Jeffries is one of 10 people that this is trying to address. So that really doesn't sound like something appropriate to change a bylaw for, quite honestly.
Well, without it, then they can't affect those properties. They need it in the bylaw to have authority to change them.
Actually,
They do.
we need it in the bylaw just to change one property.
Right.
You should know that, Mr. Allison.
Okay, so the three things: emergency, undue hardship, or anything that the commission deems to be in the best interest of the town of Lunenburg. That is not just addressing 10 properties.
Well, that was my point, I agree.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things we're gonna change, Mr. Allison.
Okay.
Up to council, though. And keep in mind, and Matt, you asked a good question tonight that you said you didn't want to approve it unless there's a DPW director on board.
Yes.
And this was all discussed with Rob, who I had a lot of respect for in the town. And he was amazed that, Michael Ray had to go through that because we talked about it. He was amazed the way we run some of these things. And again, most of our responsibility as a commission is to support the operation of the business as far as budgets and so on. Our job is not to go out and, even though we have, and to help with the operations. But that's up to Barbara and our new DPW director. But in the meantime, this came up. We didn't know Rob was going to leave. And out of respect for the people that worked hard on this, we're going to go forward with it on Saturday.
Well, I'm glad that you guys decided to take this up. This is definitely something that needs to be addressed. My only concern is that, we're 3-4 days away, and it sounds from the discussion tonight that there's a need for more discussion.
Well, I'm hoping to get more than 20 people at town meeting. I'm hoping to get a lot of people at town meeting. And I hope people that know me and know the commission will know what we're doing. And we'll have a new article, which Adam Costa's going to read. Trust me, he will read that because we're paying him to do that. But Adam, I got a lot of respect for him. So,
Me too.
and again, if you're skeptical, I cannot change your mind. Matt, if you're out there and you have doubt, I can't change your mind. And so vote no on Saturday, please.
If I could just add one more point. Now I'm going to kind of push back on a little something that Mr. Jeffries said, in that it's very difficult in these kinds of circumstances to write a definition of what constitutes an emergency. The whole point of the provision is to allow the Sewer Commission to address the unforeseeable. And an attempt to create a definition that restrains discretion could defeat the very purpose of the provision. So,
No, I mean, I think that I wholeheartedly agree with everything you just said. Completely agree. And I think that my comment is not really to restrain. It's not so much to restrain as much as to guide. That I think that the process. What took the process so long was that we had a member who did not think that I was in an emergent or undue hardship situation. And so trying to envision then that we're adding in this language undue hardship, that would address my needs. But my real concern is emergency. And that, while that language can address someone like me, there are snakes in the grass. And there are people who are going to be looking for how does this then create an opportunity for me to ram through something that was not intended.
We can take the word emergency out, too. I mean, that's something that the lawyers...
No. Emergency holds the whole thing.
No, I think emergency needs to be in there.
I mean, that once Barbara sends you guys the list tomorrow, we'll work it out.
Yeah.
I mean, but now, I hope you and the people at home know what we're trying to do.
Right.
We're trying to put sewer
Knowing
everywhere.
that, and knowing that, I want to really work hard to get it passed, because I think that what you're trying to do is very important, and I think it fills in gaps of things that need to be present, that you have to have as part of your toolkit as a commission.
And that's the other thing, thank you for bringing that up, is that, as we expand, as we go into the rest of this decade, this town's going to get hit with more people. It's going to happen. There's nothing we can do about it. So we're trying to make sure that our regulations are set up, and that it's fair, and that it follows all our guidelines and DEPs and so on. But, we have the capacity to expand, especially to Leominster if we can. But, it has to be a tool that the town has, not only for today, but for years to come.
Right.
You guys all spent a lot of money on the sewer district when it first came in, and right now it's running by its own. And we'd like to continue that, keep it under control, and hopefully get the cost down too. And the only way to do that is more customers too. But that's not what we're talking about. That's.
Anybody else have any? Okay. Well, I want to thank you both for coming in, and thank you for presenting what your intent is in discussing this. It's very important. I think it'll be very important for Saturday's meeting. If you do get something back from town council, I will try to write something up to try to send to you, through you, as best I can. Obviously time is short, but I will do my best to at least put in writing the waiver part. The other part about the property is just a one-line thing, which is simple enough, but the other ones I will try to do.
You know what, I'm glad you guys took the time to look at it, read it, understand it, and try to pass it along. And Michael Ray, one more thing about your money. I forgot the details with it, but let's just say if you had a piece of property and a septic system cost you $35,000, the average price now is like somewhere around 30. And if it's cheaper for that person to tie in the sewer, wouldn't you want to do that?
course.
Yeah, so I mean, that's what we're looking to do, try to save people at home money. And one last thing, Mr. Alonso, I know we've been out with a DPW director for a while, so I just want to thank Barbara and the staff at the DPW, which I sent you a letter for Joe Projan, who's doing a good job running that DPW. The town is clean during Earth Day, and they're tarring all over the place, which is good, but our hearts go out to those guys at the DPW. They're working real hard to do it.
I thank you for your email. It meant a lot to me, and I know it meant a lot to the town manager and certainly the people at the DPW.
Yeah,
so.
no, that was a good thing. And like I say, Barbara and our new trainee is doing real well, but Barbara's heading up with Heather too, I should say too. So I appreciate that. We're not missing a beat, I guess is what I'm saying. And we have good supporting crews out there.
We're looking forward to filling those positions, sooner than later.
Hey, I'm retiring in another year, so, but I never went
We'll
to
talk
college. And one last thing, I just want to say our prayers to the people in Ukraine for what's going on out there. So if people could take a moment and say their prayers, I'd appreciate that. Guys, have a good night for me. Barb, you all set?
Thank you. Thanks to you, Barbara.
Okay, let's go on to ratification of the APDC member who will fill the design professional role, Mr. William Lloyd of 53 Highland Street. I apologize for not getting to you. I didn't mean to let you sit there. I thought, having not met you before, I thought you were part of the police contingent.
I got the haircut.
Yeah, you do.
So,
Well, it's part of the test to see if you really want it. If you stick
Come on, right?
so please, if you would introduce yourself, a little bit about yourself, and about why you want to be part of the APDC.
Yes, so William Lloyd, 53 Highland. Me and my family moved here about 2 years ago. This July will be 2 years.
From where?
From Texas.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Me and my wife were both Air Force. I got stationed out at Hanscom, and I got my twilight year going on right now. I'm going to retire, but we're setting up our roots here. So I was looking to get involved in the community and start kind of building our footprint and really becoming a part of Lunenburg. We've loved it the 2 years so far, and we want to stay here and be part of the community.
Great. Welcome.
Thank you. So went to college for architecture for a little bit. Didn't pan out as well as I had hoped, but became a CAD operator and a surveyor. And that's what I did in the Air Force for about 14 years. And then, of course, I got rank and, now I'm upper level management, so I don't get to get my hands dirty anymore. But I've always been passionate about architecture and keeping that hometown feel, especially in areas like Massachusetts where, there's so much history behind some of our structures and facilities. And to just tear it down for the next mini mall is just, it hurts your feelings sometimes. So I was glad there was an opening on that committee, something I could get involved in. Looking forward to being bigger part of the town.
Excellent. Does this fill, would the appointment of Mr. Lloyd fill out that
Yes.
commission? Wow, that'd be nice. The first time since it was, I guess initially when we got it, there was enough people, and then it kind of lost membership, so.
And the funny part is the sign's right in front of my house, but my house isn't in the district. Because it cuts across the street right there at Chestnut, so.
Well, if you get appointed, we'll just take the sign and move it one house down.
Move it a little farther.
No, to anybody out there, I was just kidding. We don't do that. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Lloyd?
I don't have any questions, but thank you for stepping forward and volunteering for the town.
Thank you.
I also want to thank you for stepping forward and volunteering, or offering to volunteer. But I do have a question. Just in terms of your philosophy and your approach, this is not a litmus test, but you obviously wouldn't be seeking it out. I appreciate that committee by its nature draws people that are interested in historical preservation and architectural preservation. I can definitely appreciate that. But do you see yourself as a person that can weigh all factors, and there may be circumstances under which historic buildings need to be demolished or modified?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. There should definitely be a balance of safeguarding old architecture. Also, there shouldn't be just a dilapidated, falling apart building in the center of town. Everybody just kind of runs by because they think it's haunted or something like that. So yeah, there definitely has to been that balance, which is why I'm kind of excited that there's a committee for that. So it's just not one person deciding like, no, I don't like that building, tear it down. I don't like that building, tear it down. There's going to be some thought put into it.
All right, thank you.
Well, I can relate to the situation that you're in. When I was retiring from the Army, I was also looking to give back and to continue public service. And that's how I ended up on the planning board for about a year, then eventually coming to this board. So I certainly understand that when you've been in public service for 20 years, that it just is part of you. So I appreciate that. I manage property for a living, and I believe very strongly that properties need to meet the needs of the current population. That certainly it's very important to maintain historical properties. That is, I've worked personally in historical preservation for a couple of years for some property down in Cambridge, and I really do believe in the mission, but I also think it's really important that we don't get tunnel vision, as Mr. Franco just noted, that we're so focused on what this property was that we can't think about what the property can be. And that, and to be able to keep that foot in the past while also having a foot in the present and an eye on the future. So if that's the approach, it sounds as if what you said today is that's the approach you come with, that you bring to the table, and that is exactly, I think, what we need.
I appreciate it, sir. Yeah, it's amazing some of the things they can do now where, they take an old shoe factory, rip apart the inside, and now it's condominiums. That's speaking from my hometown and where I was brought up in Whitman, Mass. They took one of the shoe factories and just gutted it. And now it's these beautiful condos, but from the outside, it still looks like it's a shoe factory with a fresh coat of paint.
Yeah, I was just at, this weekend, I was just at the Charles River Museum of Industry and Innovation in Waltham. And it's part of the old mills because it sits right on the Charles, and half of the far end of the mill is the museum, and the attached part of it is now looked to be, because it was private residences, it looked like senior residences, in the same, like you said, same renovated buildings. It was very interesting, the multi-use. So
Yep.
I will say that the work that the APDC does is very important. I think the architecture and preservation of history is important to me as there are to many members of the board. And I think that having a design professional in here is really an important aspect. I'm so glad that we, it's so targeted, and you in a town that you're kind of really wanting more volunteers. When you target it, people who volunteer don't fit it, so we haven't been able to fill it. So I'm so glad for your stepping forward with that background. So I look forward to serving on that board as soon as you get appointed.
Appreciate it.
Right now. So I would entertain a motion regarding the ratification of the APDC member, the design professional, in William Lloyd of 53 Highland Street, term to expire June 30th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. So all your next step is to go to the town clerk's office at your earliest convenience and get sworn in. And if you haven't already, but also you should let the chair, Mr. McGrath, know that you have been appointed and find out when the next meeting is. I know they had one yesterday.
Sounds good. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Good luck. Okay, resignation of a reserve officer Brian Watson and heavy equipment operator Jarrett Ober.
It's just to notify the board of both of those resignations. Mr. Watson wasn't able to commit to the time for the reserve officer program due to a consultant position that he's kind of he's committed to with the state police. And Jarrett Ober, he resigned recently to take a position in the town of Littleton. So we wish them both the best.
All right. Okay, thank you. We don't have to accept them because they're, would be meaningless. Okay, town manager report.
We'll start with the vacancies, which the list is dwindling.
Yes, this is great. We're going to have a big celebration when we don't have any.
Don't say it.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You know, I remember what happened last time.
I don't remember, but don't remind me either.
So we have one vacancy on the Economic Development Committee, one regular member vacancy, and 2 associate vacancies on the Green Communities Committee, and 1 vacancy on the Historical Commission.
Now, don't we have a talent bank form for the Historical Commission? I thought we had one that we were waiting to schedule, but maybe.
There may be,
maybe not.
and that may be next week.
Okay, all right.
Anyone interested in these positions can find the form on the town website, complete it, and return it to the select board's office. And if you have questions on the responsibilities for these opportunities, you can contact the office at 978-582-4130, extension 144. For current employment opportunities with the town, we currently have a position open for the conservation administrator because our current administrator is retiring. We have a position for a digital service staff librarian position, a heavy equipment operator, seasonal lifeguard, van driver, and videographers for public access. And information on these positions can be found on the town website as well under employment opportunities. Green Communities Competitive Grant, just as a formal update, when I was on the week I was on vacation, I submitted all the required documentation for the Green Communities Grant. That was due by the April 22nd deadline. And the grant request was for $187,000 towards the conversion of the streetlights to LED, $5,000 towards the purchase of the hybrid cruiser that's on the FY23 capital plan, and $10,000 towards administrative costs. As far as related to the streetlights, we received proposals for design services and project oversight for this project. But as a group have decided to rebid this project as a turnkey operation, which would include both design services, actual installation of the streetlights, and oversight. So we'll be working towards issuing an RFP in the near future, hopefully, on that scope of work. Emergency paid sick leave reimbursement funds. The town has received a total of $68,693 in reimbursement funds from the state under the emergency paid sick leave. And in May of 2021, Governor Baker signed an act providing for Massachusetts COVID-19 emergency paid sick leave that required payment of up to 1 week of sick leave, or capped at $850, whatever was. 850 was the cap, so they could receive no more than that for leave related to COVID-19. The state set up a fund that businesses and towns could submit reimbursement requests up to that $850 cap per employee. And the assistant town manager, Julie Beliveau, submitted all the reimbursement requests for the town employee expenses. And the School Business Office Administrative Secretary Penny Bornman submitted the reimbursement request for the school employee expenses. This is received as a general fund receipt and will close out at the end of this fiscal year and to be certified as free cash. MBTA Housing Choice Act update. As discussed at the board's March 22nd meeting, the town was required to submit the MBTA Communities Information Form by May 2nd, and the Land Use Director submitted this on behalf of the town on April 28th. Grant updates. The school received a $18,000 grant from the state that is for one-time assistance for districts with pandemic-related enrollment disruptions that impacted Chapter 70 funding. We were notified yesterday that there's a new statewide funding called the Winter Recovery Assistance Program, and Lunenburg's portion based on our local miles is $272,678. This funding is not retroactive and must be used by June 30th of 2023. The eligible expenses are rehabilitation, reconstruction, resurfacing or preservation of roadways, and I'm gonna mess that one up. Appurtenances, including sidewalks, bike lanes and paths, repair or replacement of traffic control devices, signage, guardrails, and storm grates, or road striping and painting. So I'll work with the next DPW director on
That's great.
assessing our needs and how we best use those resources. Was very unexpected. Also unexpected, and I'm still trying to figure out what this funding is. We received notice, everyone did through DLS, that the state has issued funding to every city and town for, it looks like, downtown recovery grant money. Lunenburg's portion is $250,000. So I contacted Senator Cronin's office about that to see what exactly that is, because they didn't really give a description on it. It was just
Maybe that can be
blanket.
applied to 30 School Street.
Yeah, that's all I
Exactly,
think
that's-
about. That's
yeah.
downtown.
That's exactly downtown.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So it's coming from left and right.
I'll do Todd's.
Yeah.
Don't jinx it.
But good news. overall. Updates on fiscal 22 capital plan projects. We received an update on the public safety building chiller replacement. The chiller was ordered by the contractor, but due to supply issues, won't be delivered until August. And so right now I'm working with the engineer and contractor to figure out a solution if our current chiller fails.
Agreco. The company's called Agreco. Okay.
Flat Hill Culvert Construction. This project is on hold, as everyone knows, for additional funding. We've applied for the Small Bridge Grant Program funding and a federal earmark through community project funding, which after I submitted that initial request, I was contacted by Congresswoman Trahan's office to submit additional information on that project. So I got that in by the deadline that was required to get that in. So I'm waiting to hear on that and see if it went through the appropriations committee.
If I can just go back to the public safety building thing. Professionally, I'm going through something similar to this. Typically, they book up, so they usually don't become available if you request them after May. So if you think you're going to need one, unfortunately, you have to kind of plan it, because wanting one in July is usually not going to happen.
You mean a temporary?
Yeah, temporary chiller.
Okay.
So unfortunately, I was quoted for a 160 ton at $12,500 a month, plus a $3,000 delivery, and you have to like gamble, because you got to get it on site in May, June, and then just have it there all summer. So just would encourage that you may want to order that sooner.
Okay. Update on the two marked police cruisers. Both cruisers were received in the last week of April, and now we're waiting on the parts for them to be upfitted. The Ritter ADA ramp and envelope repairs. Our architects went before the APDC on April 21st, and the APDC voted to send the certificate to Alter to binding review. And this was continued until May 19th. Update on the town hall repairs. This certificate to alter application was submitted to the APDC, and this will be discussed at the APDC's meeting on May 19th as well. Meeting events and other announcements. Yard waste collection days at Youngs Road are Saturdays now until May 21st. The collection is open from 8 a.m. until 4 p.m. The Lunenburg Farmers Market will start on Sunday, June 12th, and be every Sunday until Sunday, September 25th. And the band concerts will be on the following dates: July 11th, July 18th, July 25th, August 1st, August 8th, and a rain date for any of those dates on August 15th. And the band concerts will once again be held on the lawn in front of the TCP building. And that's all my updates for tonight.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes.
Yeah, sure. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you stop?
Yes. All right. Any questions for the town manager? Thank you for your report.
Thank you.
Okay, old business. Review and approve the tailings policy. So so it's discussed at 2 meetings. I asked for this to be held, so here we are. Unless anybody has any changes they'd like to make between last week and this week, I would entertain a motion that we accept the tailings policy as written and presented to us in our Google Drive.
I move to approve the policy, the tailings policy as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? None. So it is now adopted. Okay. Then we go to the discussion of the one-day liquor license policy to include insurance requirement. There was, in our Google Drive, some data that we looked at. So in the last few years, we've had 7 different entities ask for one-day liquor licenses. None of them were not businesses. Well, one was not a business. The Stillman Country Fair was not a business. But everything else was a business and an entity that probably had insurance anyway. So I was, that certainly, now please. Thank you. Okay, the other thing that was presented was what other towns have in regards to this, and it is not uncommon for many towns to have this requirement for the liquor license of the insurance requirement. So again, that personally, for me, satisfied my interest in that. So I personally am in favor of including the liquor license and one-day the insurance requirement in the one-day liquor license. But I will open it up to the board for discussion.
Mr. Chair, I felt similar to you when I reviewed the limits that, other towns require for their one-day liquor license, and yeah, so I am supportive of the changes.
I have no questions, and I don't have a problem with it either.
Yeah, no, I'm in support. The only thing that I would suggest is that we note the town as being the additionally insured for these, and my other question is, just a business that has insurance. A business that has insurance, that I wonder what My concern is that if a business has insurance, that insurance was not aware that they would be serving alcohol, that that's what they were covering, and then there's an event, and they say, we're not covering that how do we ensure that the insurance is not just business general, but that it's specific for that one-day alcohol license?
Well, Hanover suggests that the applicant provide proof of $1 million liquor liability coverage. So I guess there's a specific coverage that we could look at. If we ask them to send us their insurance coverage, we look at it and make sure it includes liquor.
Okay, so then,
I guess there is some kind of rider or additional coverage for
okay,
that.
so
Right.
that,
So they should issue with their application a certificate of insurance with the town named as an additional insured as a condition, so it can just be reviewed and checked off.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
what I would do.
Yep.
Yep.
Perfect.
So is everybody okay with that?
250, 500, is that what we're saying?
What was your?
No, I didn't say.
No, what would you be, I mean,
Oh,
there's
my
lots of different ones. I mean, the most common was 1 million, 2 million aggregate.
The
But
state,
some people is only 500.
I think the last notation in there was that the state requires 250 per incident, or in 500, well, 500 total, 250 per person or whatever. I would be in favor of the state minimums on this one.
Madam Town Manager, do you have a recommendation?
I think that's acceptable,
Okay.
and naming the town as an
250,
addition, and naming the town as an additional.
Yeah, so those two parts, that have to have it as that the town is named as an additional insured, and it will be 250 per occurrence, 500,000 aggregate.
Yep.
Is that okay with everyone?
Yes.
Right, so, as noted, I'll entertain a motion regarding that, or do we want to have the whole policy? Is this okay to vote like this and you'll include it, or do you want to?
I think that line will be added to the existing policy as far as conditions.
Okay, so that's all, but all we need is this vote then?
Yes.
Okay. So I'd entertain a motion on what we just discussed regarding the insurance inclusion in the one-day liquor license application.
I move to approve the inclusion of the insurance requirement for the one-day liquor license, as well as the condition that the town is named as an additional insured.
And in the amount of $250,000 per occurrence and $500,000 aggregate.
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second that and thank Mr. Dwyer for constructing that motion.
I sure wasn't saying it myself, so.
Without a net, without a net.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay, look at this. Now we make business here. All right, signs, not flags. So we have the policy, the verbiage that Mr. Jeffries presented to us on an addition to our sign policy that explicitly states an election day exception. So do you want to present this?
Sure. So the intent was, I think initially I was looking at just adding in a one bullet, but as I started writing this, I realized there's probably a little more conditions that we need to apply. So I recommend that we modify to add an election day exception. There's some things in here I'm going to note that I think we really probably want to talk about tonight. So on any day that the town, as it reads, on any day that the town conducts an election administered by the town clerk, the following policy shall apply. 1, a candidate and/or members of a candidate's campaign team may place campaign signs on town property along Massachusetts Avenue and Oak Avenue. Specifically, on Massachusetts Avenue, signage must be located between the driveway to the Lunenburg Public Library and the eastern entrance to the middle high school parking lot. On Oak Avenue, signage must be located within 50 feet of the entrance to the middle high school parking lot. Number 2, all signs and rockers, these are the things that go on top of the signs that may say, vote on this day. All signs and rockers must be less than 24 inches tall and 24 inches wide. As a note, most campaign signs are 18 inches tall and 24 inches wide. Metal brackets shall be used to stake signs into the ground, and when staked, the top of the sign shall be less than 40 inches above the ground. Typically, a staked sign is usually a little less than 3 feet tall. Signs may be placed, number 3, signs may be placed on a first-come, first-served basis within 10 hours of polls opening and must be removed within 2 hours of polls closing. Number 4, that signs shall be placed within 10 feet of the public right-of-way and cannot obscure the point of view of vehicles exiting each parking lot. Number 5, that candidates and or members of a candidate's campaign are limited to placing 50 signs on town property. Number 6, that candidates and their supporters may personally hold an unlimited amount of signs, provided that they remain at least 150 feet from the polling place. And then number 7, that prior approval from any town agent is not required. However, failure to adhere to this policy should make a candidate and their campaign exempt from posting signs on town property on election day for a period of 4 years following the violation. I wanted to really discuss number 7. I noted it here as a placeholder, but I think more discussion needs to be had on that.
So I think it's excellent. I would have note some things that, well, some that I want to get this passed today, so we have it in place.
I can modify in real time too.
Well, yeah, but so the first thing is that you're explicitly saying what streets they're on now, and of course, I would have probably went with polling place and entrances to polling place, but it's okay, because this is where it's been for years and years and years, and we can address it when we change it. So that's really neither here nor there. All the other things, the only thing I would add, the only thing that I think is important to add here is that you say candidates or candidates' campaigns, but they should also allow for ballot question signs.
Got it.
So ballot questions should be included on this too.
How would we identify like that? Like how would we pick a point person for a ballot question initiative?
You wouldn't, so number 7 wouldn't really apply unless, there's some things, but people with ballot questions that have campaigns, pro and, for and against campaigns should be able to put signs.
Okay.
And, yeah, it'd be hard to.
What about instead of giving permission to the person who places signs, we give permission to the type of signs?
Well, there's no permission required. Number 7 says you don't need permission.
I think
there's just no penalty for those people. So if you have a Prop 2.5 pro or con, for or against campaign, and you break these, no one's going to. So you can't there's just no one to really penalize. So I don't know how you get around that. I don't know. There is a way.
Do we just have that as an unregulated space? Because I don't know how, in other words, what I'm saying is that.
The real question about number 7 would be who enforces it anyway?
Yeah, writing it, at one point I wrote, zoning officer, but then I'm like, he doesn't work on Saturdays typically. And then I was like, well, maybe we should have it as, town manager. Then town manager's not usually here on elections. I was like, who's usually here? School facility people?
Well, police. Police are here, so we should maybe, instead of, either would leave number 7 as just the first, with just the first sentence, and I would maybe add a number 8, saying any signs in violation will just be removed. We're just going to remove them. Okay. So if you're the town is just going to remove them, and they're just going to take them off.
Okay.
Because there'll be people there that day, so we should probably ask the police to do it or something.
Okay. So you would reword that as keeping.
So 7, I think, should stay just as the first sentence, that you don't need prior permission.
Okay.
And then number 8 is that any sign in violation of this will just be removed by, I don't know. Should we name police, or could say the town clerk, or a designee, or town clerk.
I would be happy to be the designee if anybody, to go out and remove the signs.
We're going to do it.
Yeah. Town clerk or his or her
Just say
designee.
Yeah.
Will be removed by Lou. Don't even put the last name. Just Lou.
So so any sign in violation of this policy shall comment.
Will be removed.
Will be removed by the town clerk or his or her designee.
Yep.
I think somewhere in there should talk about the 150-foot limit.
It does. 6.
It does. Number
6.
6, yes.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Covered.
No, I think this is very well constructed. Thank you.
Yes, I do as well. So I do have a question at this point. Did we get to the point? Did this evolve that the spirit of the second sentence of point 7 is just being struck? Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard to.
I see. Now I edited it. Now I can't put my edit in. All right.
Did it start with the party or the first part?
Well, I was going to say that, like exempt is like when somebody has a requirement or a duty, you exempt them from that, but-
Prohibited.
Yeah, barred, yeah, barred.
Barred,
Yeah,
barred
yeah,
out
yeah.
now.
Thank you. Good, yeah.
And,
Barred.
and I was going to say last week too, but I think you did such a fantastic job, and you have the heading Election Day exception. I was going to say that, whatever, the preamble should begin with notwithstanding the prior provisions, because whenever you have an opportunity to use notwithstanding, you do it.
I almost did, but I was like, nah, that's a little too much.
I think this is great.
So that's the only changes that we made is we separated 7 as one and we added the 8 about picking up the signs. And then, of course, anytime it says a candidate or members of a candidate's campaign team may play, anytime it says campaign signs, and it should be or ballot question signs.
So
I think it's ready to be adopted.
all right, candidate and/or members of a campaign team.
So anytime it says campaign signs, anytime it talks about the signs themselves.
Well, why don't we just say campaign signs or ballot initiative signs may be placed on town property? That, we don't have to say who places them there. It doesn't.
Yeah,
why is
that's
it-
true. That's true.
Yeah.
You don't need, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's right, yep.
All right.
Yep, so that, yeah, I like it. Shortening is good.
Campaign signs, and your word was or, ballot.
Well, and, or, I don't know which one would be more appropriate.
And/or.
Yeah, and or ballot question signs.
Could be doing both.
Yeah, you can't be too careful.
Yeah.
Ballot initiative signs or ballot.
Ballot question. I definitely want to say ballot question. Can be placed on town property. And I would say, at that, before the colon, say as follows, and then do 1 and 2.
Okay. Comma as follows.
Yep. As follows, colon.
And then similarly on item 5, where it says candidates or members of candidate's campaign, just say limit placing 50 campaign and/or ballot question signs on town, limit the number of,
Just say
there's a limit
maximum.
of 50 ballot question or campaign signs.
I would say a maximum of 50 campaign and/or ballot question signs can be placed on town property. A maximum of. Yes, no?
Yep. I think we may need to, let me just write it. Can be placed. Do we want to clarify
So-
that's per initiative or per?
That's exactly where I was going to go.
that's true.
I agree. So maybe a campaign or ballot question is limited to 50 signs on town property.
Okay. I think
Or
that's,
you could say each campaign or ballot.
Well, you could
Yes,
say-
yeah, each campaign or, yeah, I like that better.
each campaign and/or, well, I think this would be an or.
Yep.
Or ballot question sign. And what was your other phraseology? How did you say that? How did you finish that?
But just say each campaign or ballot initiative are limited to a maximum of 50 signs on town property.
Right, but we want to keep question, right?
Well, no, but it's okay, ballot initiative sign.
Right.
You could say ballot question, but ballot, yeah, probably leave question, so, yeah. Each campaign or ballot question,
Is limited to 50 signs on town property.
Yeah.
Is or are?
just the word each first, right?
It was limited to a maximum.
Each campaign.
Yeah, it's limited to a maximum, yeah.
Yep.
Or, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to reread 5. Each campaign or ballot question sign is limited to a maximum of 50 signs on town property.
Yes.
Yep.
All right. And then number 1 has been, you seeing it with me?
Each campaign or ballot question sign is limited? Each ballot?
Or each campaign or ballot question
Right.
is limited to,
250 signs,
Is limited to a maximum,
a maximum of 50 signs on town property.
okay.
yep.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. I'll email it to you, Heather.
Okay.
After we vote on it.
All right. Well, I would entertain a motion on the Election Day exception to the sign policy.
I move to approve the Election Day exception as amended here this evening.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? None. Thank you, Mr. Jeffries, for putting that together.
Good job.
Do we want to just send this to the school committee as well, just to get them to try to approve it as well without any changes?
Sure. Okay. Discussion on fiscal year, let's do these, so if you have anything to add on these, from any left or right of me, fiscal year '23 budget, anything to add or discuss?
The budget note, there are no changes.
Okay.
Budget.
Capital plan, no changes. Financial forecast, everything's rosy. Annual town meeting warrant articles, so there are 7 articles we did not take a position on, so let's see if we can address some of these this evening. They are as follows, and let's just take them one at a time. Article 17 is the sale of cemetery lots. So, and we're doing this, obviously, it's not in the warrant, but if we can have these ready so we don't have to caucus and do this live on town meeting, that would be helpful. Some of these we may still defer, but, so anybody have any motion they'd like to make on Article 17?
Move to recommend approval of Article 17.
Second.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? None. Did we have the wage schedule? Is that in here?
Yes, yep.
All right, so the wage schedule for the salary admin plan is now in our Google Drive, and this is the new one that was approved by the Personnel Committee, and, right?
Yes,
Did you have any issues with this?
I do not.
This is Article 21?
It's Article 21, yes.
Just to reiterate, so town meeting, they're asking town meeting just to approve the fiscal '23 plan. They're going to do a full, more comprehensive review for the following 2 years.
Okay.
To look at all the positions and see if they're classified right and do a more comprehensive look. Make sure everyone's categorized right. The goal of this was to bring up the minimum to state minimum wage for the grade 1. So.
And what is the state minimum wage? I feel embarrassed that I don't know.
$14.25, but it
Okay.
will go up to $15 next.
Right, that's what I thought, so, but the,
Next
so.
January. Right now, there were only a few people that were state minimum, under state minimum wage. Now even less because we had someone that was in a grade 1 that left. So that this scale achieves that. So there's greater increases in the first couple grades, and less percentage increases in the higher wages in the top
Okay.
wages.
Okay.
And the total.
I mean, it seems from this chart, we shouldn't hire anybody who's not at least a grade 3, step 6. So,
And
which
that's
I'd be
a-
fine with. I mean, I just like, that's what anybody should start in grade 1 and grade 2, or just become legacy things that no one's ever gonna get hired under. We don't have to shift everything up and add 2 more steps, I mean, because that just drives me crazy.
Yeah. The total impacts for SAP employees for this wage scale is $33,018
For the very first year?
for FY '23.
Okay. Well, again, we should, bad optics not to pay people minimum wage.
Yeah.
Besides the fact that it's probably illegal, but when it becomes that, but it's still bad optics. So, yeah, I'm fine with this chart. I've reviewed this chart. I don't know if anybody else on the board has anything they want to discuss.
Nope.
Otherwise, I would entertain a motion on Article 21.
I move to recommend approval of Article 21.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None. Article 22 I would like to, I have some questions that I want to review further, so I would like to put this off. Defer to town meeting on this one, if that's okay.
Okay.
24, the bylaw reviews. I thought we had voted on this. I guess not. I know we had a discussion about it.
I thought we did too.
Discussion,
Yeah, we
right.
definitely had a discussion on it.
Yeah, we had a long discussion
Yeah.
about it that we can just, because I remember it came down to, it's like, well, we can approve these, and we can still, they're bylaws, so that we don't need a bylaw review committee to change them. I think Mr. Jeffries brought up the fact that he'd like to see more changes, and I think it was discussed on the board that, well, you don't need a bylaw review committee to do that, they're just bylaws. So somebody who they refer to, whether they're, whether they're for the select board or any other body, they can just bring them up. So what they've done is mainly clerical.
Yeah.
And I think it's instructive to get all the selectmen references and put all the select board references in. That's a good start, so we don't, otherwise we're just gonna delay that till another time anyway. So,
Yeah, I think my initial reservations, I've overcome them.
okay, so before you have a change of heart, or anybody does, let's go. I would entertain a motion, even if we have already done this, we can't be too
Yeah.
positive in this.
This is Article 24, right?
24, yes.
Move to recommend approval of Article 24.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
25, I think probably after tonight's discussion, we're going to want to hear what the result is.
Yep.
So let's not, and for me, I don't know about anybody, I know nothing about 29 and 30. I don't even know if we're going to have a citizen there on either one of these to present them, because citizens' petitions should be presented by the citizen.
And you haven't had any reach out? I'm assuming that the answer that you said it because you haven't had any reach out yet.
I reached out to one of the people for the state flag citizens petition, and we do have someone that's going to speak to the article.
A resident?
Yes.
Okay.
A resident.
Okay.
And I've also keyed in the town moderator, so if he has said he'd recognize out of town resident as well,
For
if
20
there's
for
questions that
30?
she can't answer on
Okay.
it. And I reached out to who I had as a contact for the other citizens petition, but haven't received a call back.
Okay. I'm comfortable deferring.
So we've approved, recommended approval for Article 17, 21, 24, and on 22, 25, 29, and 30, we have deferred till finally town meeting. Okay.
Did I not include 26?
It's not on the.
Sorry.
Which one is 26?
Oh, that's the
Planning board.
marijuana thing.
Yeah, that's one of them you did not make a recommendation that,
Yeah, so I would say, I mean, I don't know anything about it, and I'd like to hear the presentation at this point.
okay.
Same.
I know there's a lot of talk, social media about the water, yeah, the changing of zones.
That's
27, I think.
27 and the map is 28.
Yeah, so.
I thought we recommended approval for
You
this.
did for
Well,
that.
we did, because it wasn't brought up for that. We're gonna wait to hear, we may wanna reconsider depending on what people say. Again, I don't want any unintended consequences, and to me, I thought it was just, the way it was presented last time, because it was on one of the other town meetings, I don't know if it was a special or last year's, and we just passed over it, because it was because it was Mass DEP asked us to pass over because it was something they wanted to see in the map or the district. And I thought this was just a pro forma thing, but now people on Hickory Hills are bringing up the fact that the creation of a zone, the changing of zone 1, 2, and 3 may impact regular activities on the lake, things that people are already doing.
I thought the water district was, I didn't see
I did
much
read
of it.
the water superintendent's, email, but I want to hear what the residents have to say. I mean, those are the people going to be directly impacted. Again, very much like we had with the sewer commission, the intent of what they believe is happening and what may actually happen, are sometimes not aligned, and that is the problem. So if there's ways to allay people's concerns that they're gonna be restricted on a property that, they want to do certain activities that have to do with the water, and they maybe, and it's just may, be precluded from doing them, I want to hear what they are. I want them to be comfortable with it, so.
I'm comfortable changing our recommendation to.
Well, we're just going to wait. I mean, we can't change it. It's in the book, and we're not going to vote it tonight. But if we hear a discussion, we may want to reconsider. And my guess is if somebody comes up and offers amendments, we'll be forced to discuss it anyway.
I'm having kind of a moment. I don't remember in town meeting if the recommendations come at the very beginning or at the very end.
After the motion's read,
That's what I
the
mean.
town moderator asked the finance committee and the select board
Okay.
the recommendation.
Unless we deferred, and then he asks at the end of the discussion.
Okay, so it would be said then that we recommend approval before the conversation even happens.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Do we want, I mean, I know it's in the bulletin, but do we want to change that today, so that way we don't say that on Saturday?
Well, it's in the booklet, and I think it would be really confusing.
Got it.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
I think that as is, I mean, so if anybody is that concerned, they're gonna either offer to, vote against it and explain why, and we can voice as a group, as a body, or individually our feelings, but if anybody offers an amendment, we'll definitely have to caucus and
Yeah.
ask approval on the amendments, so.
Could I just go back to 26 for a second?
Sure.
I think that basically just cutting through the weeds, no pun intended, 26 is basically there's a laundry list of stuff you have to do if you want to open a marijuana establishment. The way it currently reads is that there's an order in which you have to do these things. The amendment is to say that it really doesn't matter what order you do these things in. You can do your local requirements first before the approval locally will be contingent upon your ultimately getting the state approval. You don't have to actually jump through hoops in a certain order, is essentially what I think 26 is.
I think it reads that way too.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. So I guess, I'd be more than happy to vote on it tonight, because that's what I think it does. We may want to hear that that's what it does.
Yeah, I am not even necessarily making an argument for changing the, to going in and saying that we now recommend approval. I'm just saying, just sort of cutting
Yes, I
cutting
concur
through
with
it.
your
Yeah,
opinion.
okay.
Yes.
So maybe it makes it a little cleaner at the
Right.
town meeting,
Right.
so.
Well, everything was done serially. When Uma Flowers was before the planning board, or before us, like, we couldn't enter in a host community, they couldn't approach the Cannabis Commission before Host Community Act, Host Community Agreement. And, that's what I think this does. Like, you can apply there, and you don't have to do this
Yeah.
serially. You can do it in parallel.
Yeah.
Eventually, you need to get all the boxes checked.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll leave it then, and we'll just. Okay, anything else on the articles? We're ready, everybody. I think we've assigned all who's reading each one. That'll be distributed. Okay. Approved minutes
That
of.
has not been distributed yet, right?
No, no,
No.
will-
Okay,
it will
okay,
be
because I was
distributed.
looking, all right,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Approved minutes of March 22nd, 2022. Has everybody had a chance to look at those? And if so, I wasn't even here, so I can't vote on it. But has anybody looked at those who was here, of the three of you?
Looked at
Okay.
briefly.
Anybody have any modifications, or they're fine?
They're good to me.
Then I would entertain a motion on the minutes of March 22nd, 2022.
I move to approve the minutes of March 22nd, 2022 as presented.
Have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I abstain, because I was not present, so they pass. No warrants, any action items? Yes, I have an action item. Everybody here should have now met with the town manager, so I need your electronic documents, so I don't have to work over the weekend to put these together for Tuesday. So please get them to me, because tomorrow they'll be on next week's agenda, and then the Tuesday before the election, we will finalize it and vote on it. Committee reports, Mr. Dwyer.
I have none.
Mr. Franco.
Okay, I have two. School committee, I won't put you through summarizing what went on there. I'll just say that I did ask, I had an action item to ask about their policy, the school side's policy on the naming of structures and buildings and all. I did present that question. They said that they would get that to us. So that's the school committee report. And Economic Development Committee, that was the last Wednesday on the 27th. Economic Development Committee was on Thursday the 28th. And there were a bunch of updates on getting that business survey out to businesses and the avenues for doing that. Also, there is in the works a business guide, which is, I've mentioned this before, a sort of one-stop booklet centralized that has, hey, I want to open a business in Lunenburg. What's everything I have to do? So that's being drafted up. I know that Mr. Bernie's working on that, and it's being modeled off of a really excellent one that came out of Ashburnham. Beyond that, we were supposed to have a formal contingent of representatives from the Lunenburg Business Association, but only one representative came. There was some sort of conflict. But there was still, about a 40-minute generative discussion about different ideas for promoting small businesses in town. But there is going to be a more formal visit from the LBA in the future, so I'll wait to comment when that happens on that aspect.
Thank you. Mr. Jeffries.
Yeah, briefly, so I, as chair of the Lunenburg Municipal Building Design Committee, failed to post the meeting in time, so we had to cancel our meeting on Monday. And we did get a response back, though, from the superintendent related to the question that was posed on asking, basically the communication was sent that we understand that their ideal is not for any of the current programs that are happening in the TC Pass deals to happen inside the schools, but that we understand that when you look at the top 20 districts in the state, that their extended day programs are happening inside of schools, as are most of the services that we're providing TCP that across the Commonwealth. So whatever the negative implications are, they don't seem to impact the top 20 districts. And so the question to the school committee and the superintendent was, though not ideal, how can they make this viable? Like, what would be the limitations? We did receive a response back. I mean, the response was basically in my interpretation, the response was a restatement of what had already been previously stated, that it just wasn't going to work. That was essentially the gist, and that if it was in the schools, it was limited to the classrooms, that they would have a cap on people. I think that naturally, knowing the membership of the Lunenburg Municipal Building Design Committee, I think there's going to be a serious question on why, if there's 100-something thousand square feet within the school department, why none of it will seem to work besides cafeterias for this purpose. So the initial, I think, push from the Building Design Committee, while we're looking at programming, while we're looking at the facility needs here at this building and at Ritter Building, it's also a mind on we need to decrease the square footage of any rehabilitation at TC Passios. And the immediate target is all of that school-related space that was about a third to a half of the building that would only be utilized for 180 days a year, 25 hours a week, and $300 to $500 a square foot. We're not that rich. So we really need to come up with a solution that will decrease that square footage. And so there is going to be some engagement, I expect, following town meeting with the school committee, with the superintendent. We are going to invite them to our next meeting, probably the one after that, to really try to get to an answer here that is, I think, that none of us, that we know the schools don't want to get to, but that, I think all of us recognize is must be viable. That we need to look at those best practices that are happening already in the Commonwealth and really figure out why they will not work in Lunenburg. I think right now, many other members, we don't get it. So that's just something that's coming up, not, like I said, not too big. I don't want to, I can't speak for the committee. They haven't seen the full response, I'm sure. But that was just my takeaway in conversation with a member.
Thank you.
Could I briefly piggyback on that?
Sure,
Just for a
yeah.
second? Yeah. I just for anybody looking for something to do this Friday night, if you wish to see the discussion from the school committee on this point, it can be found between the 2-hour and 55-minute mark and the 3-hour and 13-minute mark. It was an 18-minute discussion. Just
I did ask Lou.
he specifically asked me where they discussed it. That's why I know
Don't we
that.
have somebody looking for digital records and everything? I think they found their person. I'm telling the library to look for you. I also, Mr. Jeffries, you're chairing, of course, the Memorial Day ceremony, and since it is now May,
Yes.
maybe you want to announce when
Sure.
that will be?
Yeah, Memorial Day ceremony will happen on Memorial Day at 10 a.m. And this year, it's going to be really exciting. I want to, Mr. Peter Beardmore was able to secure a local person who currently is a general officer in the United States Army, active duty, and so they will be able to attend, which I think we're really excited. So we will have 2 guest speakers at the ceremony, Mr. Alonzo and also the general. So we're really excited about that.
And that will be at 10 a.m., right? Isn't that usually?
10 a.m. on Monday, the last Monday of the
May
month.
30th, yep. The only committee report I had is that the FinCom had their, I don't think they're meeting on Thursday. That was their last meeting, last Thursday. And so they went over, like we did, some of the articles that they hadn't taken positions on, they went over. But a large part of the conversation was on the capital plan, and as I mentioned here last week, there was questions about how the capital plan, or if the capital plan article could be amended, and if so, how. We saw the opinion from town council, and the chair of the finance committee was not in agreement with that, so we met, he and I and another member of the FinCom, Mr. Passios, met with the town council during office hours last Wednesday to discuss this and have a conversation. You'll be pleased about this, Mr. Jeffries, because you use this a lot. We agreed to disagree. And then there was a discussion about how they wanted to proceed, going forward. So tomorrow, in here, we're having, with town moderator, we're having the pre-town meeting to go over things, and I'm sure this will come up again to see how the FinCom or the chair of the FinCom will approach this, and whether there will be a motion to try to do this or not. It's unknown. He seems to be leaning against doing it. Didn't agree. He doesn't agree with the opinion, but that is where we stood. That was the lion's share. Otherwise, it was pretty much, just a standard meeting where they went over some of their items. There's no real contention except for that one, of which I am aware. So, otherwise, I think we're all ready. Which leads us into upcoming meetings. Of course, May 7th, annual town meeting. So 9 a.m. again at the middle school, high school auditorium. Check-in starts at 8. We should be using the new electronic voting buttons. So there'll be a dry run-through on that on Friday. So we will see. Any public comment from the public before we leave? Seeing no hands raised. Any public comment from the board? Anyone? Okay, well, I will encourage everybody to come to town meeting. I will say the same similar thing I say every year. I mean, it's a real privilege being in a town with open town meeting where every voter has a right to place a vote and discuss items. First, I know people's lives are busy, but it is important business, and it is important to hear from the voice of the town and not just a select, 100 people or so. So if you have the availability, please come down and participate in town's legislative body. The agenda being fulfilled, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, none. Good night, everyone, and until Saturday at town meeting, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Good night.
Recording stopped.